Good evening, good evening, everybody, and welcome. Is my microphone working? Oh, there we go. Before we start the meeting, I need to point out the exits because there's a big note here in front of me that reminds me to do just that. So there are two exits in the back of the building, the way you came in. That door exits to directly the outside. You can get out through here and out through my office. Our first order of business is stand if you can, and we'll salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In a moment of silence, please. Thank you, everybody. Next, I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes from the town clerk from our February 3rd meeting.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next up is comments from town residents. If anyone has anything they would like to, so you have to please come to the podium and state your name and your address or where you live generally.
Hello, thank you for this opportunity to speak to you all. My name is Valerie Genshi. I live at 4306 Ellsworth Boulevard, Malta, New York, 12020. I have been looking for a house to purchase in the town of Malta for over 2 years. There's plenty of apartments. We don't need more apartment buildings because there's a lot of vacant ones. My problem is that any house that I would be interested in to purchase is snapped up or I'm outbid by 90% of the time somebody who wants to turn it into an Airbnb. I did a little digging, asked a few questions. I don't believe the town of Malta has any ordinance about short-term rentals. I was speaking to somebody today from the town of Milton, and they had the same problem. Communities were being destroyed. There's all transient people coming in and out of the Airbnbs. And what that town did is they made an ordinance not allowing short-term rentals. And you can only have long-term rentals a year or more, which is normal. And it got rid of all the Airbnb problems, which Malta is infested with. I went on the Airbnb website today, and I searched Malta Town, New York. Over 1,000 Airbnbs are available. Those are homes that should be occupied by families to build a community. And I am asking this board and you to please look into the ordinance and to please get one into place, because there is not a housing shortage. It's an infestation of Airbnbs. We don't need more apartments. People don't want to live in their parents' garages, which some of my neighbors had to do, because they cannot afford these houses that they're being outbid on. And these are young couples. People who work in the neighborhood in this community can't live here. So I'm asking you guys today, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak, to please do something about these Airbnbs, because it is a serious problem. It's a blight on the community, and it's time that something is done about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. And you'll just note that it is something that we, in the process of evaluating our zoning, we have talked about trying to put some short-term rental legislation in place. Because another problem is, of course, they're not inspected for safety. So, anyone else? No public comment? Okay. You'll have an opportunity at the end of the meeting also. So now is comments from town board and department heads, and I, of course, have a few things. First, there is, I don't know if you're aware, there's new legislation by the state that requires that all municipalities have a .gov domain name for their website. We are, of course, a .org, so we're gonna have to change that in 2025, which we can do. It's not that difficult, but I want some input from this board about what you want our name to be. So some of the proposed names by our town website committee have been maltanewyork.gov, townofmalta.gov, townofmalta.ny.gov, or this was not recommended by them, but I said we can also keep malta-town.gov. Well, it'd be .gov instead of .org. Anybody have any opinion? Do you want to think about it and let me know? I can read them to you again.
When do we have to do this changeover by?
Has to be done before October? June, well. Oh, actually, I have the legislation here. June 19th, 2025.
So who do we register that?
Well,
State or the?
right, I mean, we'll take care of all of that. I just didn't want, the website committee necessarily to pick the name.
What are the options?
Well, the options are anything you want, but some of the
If they're open.
suggestions are, right, they have to be open, and Melissa's checked to make sure that these are all available. maltanewyork.gov, townofmalta.gov, townofmaltany.gov, or malta-town.gov, which Melissa does not like malta-town.gov.
Town of Malta is,
I like the town of Malta.gov, got it on a symbol right up there,
Just townofmalta.gov?
just like we got it right there. I mean, that's just, I'm only one suggestion.
Right.
back up.
Oh, we want a 1 and a 2.
Put out a list and we'll just, take a vote.
I would recommend New York be in it, NY, but
Yes or no?
I do,
You do?
She thinks it should be townofmaltany.gov
something like that. I don't,
or Malta
I know
NY.
this is kind of silly, but I manage the Malta Rotary website, and you wouldn't believe the number of people who think they're contacting the country of Malta. So,
I think that town would help us, no? That town part?
well, maybe.
Any other opinions?
But I've Googled Malta before. I think.
I like the townofmalta.gov and townofmaltany.gov is the secondary.
Okay,
I don't care.
Right.
I'm not, I won't be a pain in
gives
the
us some
ass.
guidance. Okay.
I'm easy.
Next, we had a presentation a while back from Slick, the fiber optics company, that if they install, if they asked that we house some of their equipment here on site, and with that, we would get some free service, so reached out and discussed it with our Parks and Rec director, and the service locations that they agree to and that we think, pending the board's, opinion also, are 4 locations. One of them is the Fire Companies of Malta, Malta Ridge Volunteer Fire Company, the Community Center, and the Ecological Park. All are areas that they will eventually go by and would agree to provide service. This campus already has service from Greenlight, and the Round Lake Hose Company has free service from Spectrum. So that's why I left them out.
How much equipment are they looking to,
A little thing,
what's that?
maybe,
A little server, that's it?
it's a little concrete platform with a housing thing on it, not, I know, 5 by 5 maybe, bigger than that? Yes, no? 10 by 10? Oh. Terry has kind of located a place that he thinks it would be reasonable. It would be outdoors.
On a concrete
On
slab,
concrete slab.
all that stuff.
Yep, little generator.
Do we have any contractual
Climate control?
obligations under,
We
Light?
reviewed the,
Haven't,
we reviewed the contract with Greenlight, and there's nothing that precludes us from entering into agreement with another fiber optics company.
Steve? You got any
Yeah, the agreement is,
on that?
the agreement's a license agreement that's non-exclusive and revocable, so.
That is
we wouldn't-
revocable?
Yep, and it's non-exclusive, so we could have a similar service with another company.
Any objections to any of that by the board? Okay. Next, this is kind of a fun one. Malta Neighbors was our very own Elise Young, our artistic director, who puts on some fabulous plays and some camps, and she's a great asset to the town of Malta. So if you haven't seen the Malta Neighbors, got a nice little story about her on the front page, well deserving. We, at our previous workshops, we proposed additional workshops on the rezoning project for March 10th and March 24th to continue that work. Just so that, put that out there. Well, 24th and the 10th, yes. And last, I received and shared with the Board of Correspondence that, from the Saratoga Economic Development Corporation, that I want to read here into the official record. Supervisor Young and members of the town board, on behalf of many SEDC members, stakeholders, and private property owners with land appropriately zoned in the town of Malta, I write to you respectfully today to register our collective opposition to the proposed local law imposing a moratorium on all land development with certain exceptions in the town of Malta. Both you and the members of the town board are to be commended for your efforts to protect the public health, welfare, and safety of your residents, as well as implementing the zoning amendment recommendations provided in the town comprehensive plan adopted by the town board in 2023. However, the drastic, unnecessary, and aggressive enforcement action to accomplish these worthy recommendations, temporary or otherwise, will deprive residents and taxpayers with appropriately zoned property in the town of Malta the freedom to exercise their private property rights. The proposed moratorium is further unnecessary, with my understanding that your experienced and trained planning department staff, with the cooperation of the town board, is substantially through an update to the existing zoning regulations, which would, on its face, would appear to address the circumstances stated by the members of the town board at the public workshop on February 12th as a basis for the moratorium. Planning, zoning, and comprehensive plans are designed by their very nature to be living documents. Regular review and updating of those important land use rules and regulations are a necessary function of local government to address changing demographics, infrastructure, expansion, and the will of the people. The enforcement action you propose would be contrary to reasonable and responsible efforts to expand Malta's tax base, create investment opportunities, add and retain full-time jobs. There are several ways to accomplish your land use planning and zoning goals efficiently and effectively. An example is the zoning regulations update already underway. A moratorium of any length that prohibits economic investment and opportunity is not one of them. I encourage the town board to table any further consideration of the proposed local law that would impose a planning, zoning, and building moratorium on property owners and taxpayers in the town of Malta. Sincerely, J. Gregory Connors, President, CEO. And
That was his second letter,
he,
correct? Or-
well, he spoke here. He spoke during the public comment, when we had the last workshop. Well, this is the letter that he sent, that I forwarded to you, so,
And we saw that,
that's all I have.
okay. What was it, 2 weeks ago? That there were two of us that was the sheriff to find out the cost of having the same patrol that we had last year, a little higher than what I had
Yep.
thought.
And who met with him, Craig?
I
You?
met that with Zerlo, it was Tim and I. Where's Timmy? He's still here? He's running for.
Oh, yep, okay, but so I know, I thought you talked about another board member, but yes.
I asked others also, there were conflicts. I finally got a informal verbal contract and the cost. It was $356,000 for the same thing that we had last year. So I went in and asked him, can we change that contract instead of having 2 shifts, have 1 shift? He said he's open to anything. I told him I would get back to him. I had to find the funds, and then I also went to the town of Stillwater, and I looked at how much they pay for their police service. It's $490,000 per year for in-house, so it's a considerable difference. Since we had that meeting, we've had 1 stabbing in town. We've had 2 homicides, plus I think we had.
We had a contract car when the homicides were done.
Right, but I'm trying to show
Yeah.
that Alta is growing and that the role of government should be safety as being number 1. And I think we ought to consider having some form of a safety patrol. It can be through the sheriff, or it can also have our own part-time safety, I shouldn't say enforcement, but a car that monitors our parks, that there's been a lot of graffiti, vandalism on. We could use them at parades and throughout any other issues that you have in town directly. So I was doing that, and I am for having some kind of a safety patrol through the sheriffs. I don't know how others.
I'm with you, Craig, 100%. Getting the police back online in the town of Malta. And we got to find some money or make cuts. I'm all in and ready to sit down and make that happen. So I guess we probably need to see what they're going to offer in writing first. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I still,
He is extremely flexible. He stated that, and he was very clear on it. If we want 1 shift or 2 shifts, and then I said to him, is there any 1 shift that you're finding more crime at? And he says, it happens at all times, evening, daytime. But I've also heard that their second shift is manned less than their first shift. And I do know our judge gets called out an awful lot in the evenings at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, several times per week. So I'm kind of leaning towards a second shift if we had to split it up.
Okay.
That's my words.
First of all, like I said, the 2 homicides that happened in Malta were when we did have a contract car and did stop them. The incident last week was a domestic violence incident that likely would not have been, stopped by a contract car. I think that pretty much every time I leave my house, I see law enforcement. We continue to have the New York State Police House here in Malta. I see sheriff's deputies all the time, and I just think it's an unnecessary expense. Other towns don't necessarily have it. I mean, a couple do, but the town of Ballston no longer has one, and I just think it's an unnecessary expense. And I don't know where we're gonna find the money either, because
Well,
there's not too many cuts we
When
can
I
make.
look at our budget and I see $40,000 for signs out in front and they mount and they mount and they mount, the first thing that government should be responsible for is safety. And it's the needs, it's not the wants.
And I agree
where I'm coming
that safety is a priority, but I don't think we're a hot mess of, increased crime.
My opinion.
Anybody else? Want to say anything? Okay, any other comments from town board members?
Well, we coincidentally had the Public Safety Committee meeting today, the second one, went pretty well. One of the concerns, and we're going to get the message out there with our newsletter, is we want to make sure all the residents ensure that if you have a fire hydrant in front of your house, that you clear it out. In case of an emergency, that is the responsibility of the homeowners to make sure that all fire hydrants are cleared out so the fire department can access that fire hydrant if need be. The reports from EMS, the two fire stations, fire departments, and the two law enforcement agencies that patrol the town, there was nothing significant to report as far as any rise in crime, fire hazards, or public health concerns outside of the normal increase of flu going on right now.
And I do want to commend you, Matt, that the Public Safety Committee has really, the discussions have turned out to be very informative. I mean, even just that about the fire hydrants today. But there were a lot of other things that came out of the discussion about, and public safety. And I think it was a great idea that, and Rick both were proponents of during the campaign. So I think that's great. Anybody else? We'll move on to tonight's action items. We have a couple. The first is we have to approve 3 new hires for the highway department. One of them probably won't last long, but we're going to approve them anyway for tonight. So those are 3 different resolutions. So if we can take those all together. Anybody want to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The community center budgetary appropriation was for them to hire another part-time clerk at the community center, and our Parks and Rec director has found someone she wants to hire, so that's the next.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Aye.
All in-
Excuse me.
Yeah, jumping ahead. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We had one of our water distribution trainee people leave, so we are looking to basically hire 2 trainees, but before we do that, we have to establish a second trainee position. So this resolution is to establish a water distribution system operator trainee. Does anyone?
So by doing well,
Yeah, first, we're just establishing a position.
So move.
Anybody second?
second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And then this next one is to hire 2. The next 2, which we'll take together, are to hire 2 water distribution system operator trainees.
So move.
Any discussion?
Yes. So that leaves us with how many?
4.
4 total?
4 total. Well, it'll be
So it would
4
be
operation.
Jean, assistant.
His
Two
assistant and
others?
2 others, yes.
How many did Mackey have?
They had 4, but Alec Mackey also was a working supervisor, so,
You know how that goes.
yeah. I think Alec really worked, so this basically fully staffs the department to the staffing needs that our water superintendent says he needs. And there's also the administrative person in the department, So it'll be 5 total water people.
Are those full-time?
They are full-time.
4 of them.
Yeah, 4.
Okay.
It's a big system. And the other thing to consider is we are building the Maltaville Water District that they also will be responsible for.
I'll give you 2 points there.
Did we have a resolution? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so the next items here are discussion items.
Is it too late to comment from town board on other issues right now?
No, go ahead.
2 things, both the law enforcement agencies, sheriff's department and the state police are wanting to know our water infrastructure for security purposes. So they're gonna make patrol and ensure that there's no vandalism to our water structure. Another thing that we discussed this a month ago, and we're talking about the tax receiver requesting that it's no longer be an elected position, but an appointed position. And I heard a good argument for making it an appointed position, and that being, if the tax receiver falls under the purview of the town board, that we then can dictate what the hours are, when people can come here and actually meet the tax receiver to drop off the taxes, where as an elected position, we don't have that authority. I don't know if this, maybe we want to discuss it further on, is there some benefits to maybe making an appointed position and not an elected position?
The other reason that the receiver of taxes basically requested that is because it's more of an administrative job, rather than there's no policy or anything. And in that vein, I believe that she would like to come and actually speak to the board, which I encouraged that. It's more effective for her to plead the case than for me to sit here and do it. So that will come back, Matt, for further discussion. But you make a good point, that then we would dictate, we would be able to say when the tax receiver's office is open
And hiring and firing.
and hire and fire, we'd have more, more oversight. It probably would be an appointment for a term. But, yeah, and I think there's still time to get that on the ballot.
That's all I have.
You answered my question. You answered my question.
Yeah. So we'll bring that back again. I know after she's done doing, their tax work, she intends to come and speak to the board about it personally. Okay, so, as you know, we have been having a discussion about a possible moratorium to update our zoning. We're going to talk about setting a public hearing. This public hearing requires a 10-day notice, so we can't set a public hearing next week or anything, so I've kind of put it on here. It also needs to be referred to the planning board, so not to act on tonight. I think we're having a couple more workshops during the month of March. So I thought the next week we would, vote to have the public hearing on the 24th of March before or after our workshop.
So you're saying that we have to have the public hearing on it before we can vote on the moratorium?
We have to have a public hearing and we have to refer it to the county planning board.
I know that.
Right.
And we're having workshops to do our zoning. And it took us 2 years to get this to this point because somebody stood up and said, let's do it, let's get it done. Now, you're saying we can get it done in how long?
I'm just trying to start the work before the moratorium, so that hopefully we actually get it done during the time period that, you have.
Let's get it done.
No, right. But again, it doesn't really change. If we're gonna set the public hearing next week, right, it's not gonna change the timeline. It still has to go to the county. So even if we set the public hearing and refer it next week, it'll be on the county's time, and then we can have the public hearing on the 24th when we already plan to have a special meeting anyway,
Okay.
if that's amenable to everybody. Next item is a little bit complicated, so let me try to start with the explanation. We we have a local law that was adopted in, I believe, 2017. And it refers to anyone who wants to build basically apartments in our downtown area can avail themselves of a density bonus, which means they can have more apartments than they would normally get with zoning if they offered those as for seniors. So 20% of the housing would have to be for seniors, the other 80 could be for anybody.
What item is this?
It's rescind local law number 9, 2017.
Jump down to
So,
9.
Yeah, no, it's number 2, under discussment items.
Okay.
So this, no one has actually availed themselves of this. We did have a project that was approved, that they sought this density bonus, and it was approved with a density bonus. And then after the fact, the developer of this project informed us that this law may be in violation of the Fair Housing Act. The idea is, according to our attorneys, that by protecting one protected class, namely seniors, we are discriminating against another protected class, being families. So this same developer reached out to to HUD and the Department of Justice, and they have informed us that that both of those agencies say that, yes, likely this local law is in violation of the Fair Housing Act. So what we're proposing to do, again, as I say, so far, no harm, no foul. Nobody's built anything that uses this. Yet, there has been something that's been approved, but they're the ones that told us it was illegal, so what we're proposing, on the advice of not only our town attorney, but our planning attorney, or zoning attorney, that we actually rescind local law number 9 of 2017. What that does then basically is nullifies him being able to use the density bonus. There is recourse. He can go to the zoning board of appeals and seek relief from that and be granted those extra units. The units that are being proposed, just for a little clarification, is there, as of right, there are 36 units. With the density bonus, there are 40 apartments that he could build, that this developer could build.
Where's this at?
The lofts. It's down the vacant lot that's just north of the Bluth Building, where Azuma is,
Where the Christmas tree was?
where the Christmas tree was. Yes, that plot. He's proposing to build 40 more apartments, but in order to build 40, he's got to use the density bonus.
So, clarify this. You said that he was permitted to have the greater density.
He was approved using this section of the local law that he now says is a violation of the Fair Housing Act.
So he sent a letter to the town attorney, not Steve, the other one.
No, Steve has been involved all along the way also. They came and met with us initially.
Right. He's been granted it. Now,
It's been
you're
approved.
asking him to redesign his permitted proposal. Who's
But
paying for those fees?
I'm asking this board to rescind a local law that likely is in violation of Fair
And I
Housing
don't have any problem with
on the advice of our attorney.
that. The problem is the town's getting a letter tomorrow and the hammer's coming down. That's the problem. And the problem is he's been permitted. Now you're telling me that he can't go for the greater density because of a law that is discriminating. And I asked him for data about his seniors. He averages 35% seniors anyways in his apartments. that he has now. And the other issue is there's a phrase in his third phase to get financing, and it states that he's required to keep 20% of his apartments full of seniors, and that phrase is in federal violation. Doesn't matter if he goes to HUD or any other agency, no bank will finance that, I've been told. He called me this morning, had a long conversation. I understand the town's position, and I understand his also. We can rescind the law to protect us, but we also have to find out how we're going to get that phrase out of phase 2 financing. Plus, we're asking him to go back, recreate his civil engineering, his plumbing, his interiors. All that engineering is gone. We're making ourselves liable. I'm just telling you that now. And the letter's coming tomorrow.
He can seek relief from the zoning board of
That's
appeals.
no guarantee. I discussed that.
The other thing is, this is on the advice of our attorney.
Steve,
Well, I'm in between them. I'm helping out somebody that came to me, not even about this. I want to see his data regarding vacancies in town, because we have other applicants also that want to put in. And I was astonished. They're very, very high. And this came up as a last issue. It has been brought up before, but it was very lightly at that time. So
Well, let our
I'm all in
town,
favor of fixing it. But you have to fix it with the town, and you have to fix it with him.
I mean, just before I let Steve weigh in, remember that he's the one that brought this discrepancy to our attention. We'd have been none the wiser if he just built it.
He didn't bring it. The people financing it brought it to him.
So
So he says.
my understand, without the density, he can build 36 houses on this, on the lot size.
Yeah.
With the density, he can build 4 more apartments. But the building's the same size, so the apartments are going to be smaller? Is that correct?
I don't know the details of the,
So now,
of the-
with the density bonus, he would have an additional 4 units that he could rent. Is there anything in the spirit of this that, you know, when you're going to rent it to a senior, that that rent was going to be lower, cheaper than the other apartment?
no. No,
So,
it's all market.
get-
driven.
This stems back to years
I,
ago.
I'm just questioning, does he want to be able to rent 4 more apartments, but not be restricted to having to rent it, be able to rent it to anybody? And as far as the financing, is that a town board concern about a private developer's ability to be able to finance a project?
Yeah, not in my
Our
opinion.
concern tomorrow.
Steve,
it is.
Steve,
I might be remiss, or Melissa might have sent this out, and I might have deleted it. Do we have can you send a copy out, or another one of the local law?
it's in your, it is in your town board folder,
Okay,
and here it is for you now. This is the problematic section.
got it. That's why I said I'm remiss first, I get it all immunity. Thank you.
So Steve, would you like to weigh in?
Sure. So, first off, we're in a bit of a rock and a hard place because from what I'm hearing from Mr. Warner, is that, the hammer's coming down tomorrow, and I'm not quite sure what that means, whether it's a lawsuit against the town for action that we haven't taken yet. But in any event, the problem is that we've been advised by the developer in no uncertain terms that our law violates federal law. And there's a quirk in the law that you're allowed to have an exception for senior housing because it's a noble goal to promote senior housing. But that has to be pure senior housing, where 80% of the units would be senior housing. Our local law doesn't say that. Our local law from 2017 gives this bonus density if you have 20% of the units for seniors, which is defined as over age 55. We worked, had meetings with the developer. We said, look, we're not aware of that interpretation or case law. You're suggesting it's the case. Maybe we can get a letter saying that our local law complies. And if it complies, neither of us have a problem. He wasn't able to get that letter because they said they don't issue those type of letters. And now we've been told that the other part of the law requires extensive record keeping to document that you're actually complying with you got the bonus density, you're actually complying with that by documenting that who you're renting to, what their ages are, and how it works. So there's a legal requirement of and we have a local law on that as well, to comply with that. There doesn't seem to be a solution that neither the zoning attorney nor I felt would work, which was to, in no sense are we looking to punish the developer in any way, but we have the threat of a Department of Justice or FHA violation, which for discrimination based upon our local law. So what the zoning attorney and I are recommending is that we can't keep a local law on the books that violates federal law. That's the dilemma that we're in. Now, when it was passed, there was no intention for this to be discriminatory, or really, as Cynthia pointed out, no one has actually ever built with a density. So it's out there as a potential lawsuit to enforce that says we're violating federal law, and there can be penalties and substantial oversight and problems with respect to that. And now apparently we're also facing another potential lawsuit for granting something that violates federal law. So we're in a bit of a hard place here with respect to the existing local law, and both the zoning council and I feel that we could amend the local law to comply, but that's not really what this local law was intended to do. It would have to be designated as a fully senior unit, and that this project as it's conceived wouldn't comply with that. So that amendment wouldn't help the developer and doesn't really meet what the town was trying to achieve. So I wish I had a better answer for what to do with the local law. But I don't want the town to continue to potentially be in violation of federal law and the FHA due to this 20% density bonus. So that's the advice from council to the board, is that we need to address this local law. And unfortunately, that may lead to some issues with the developer that hopefully can be worked through in some way. Certainly not my intention as an attorney, and I doubt it's the board's intention to want to prejudice or harm the developer in any way, but we just can't keep a law that apparently is discriminatory under federal law on the books.
What does the developer want? If you brought this up to us to amend it, what exactly does he want?
He wants us to basically say that we won't enforce it.
So he wants to build 40
He wants
apartments.
to build 40 apartments. And there is a vehicle in our form-based code that allows something to that effect. But in this particular case, it doesn't.
Craig, is there something?
When I saw him the other day, I was concerned about the data of housing in our community. And I was shocked that it's close to 200 units in our community at that time are vacant. And it wasn't making sense. And he said to me that 35% of his current units are occupied by seniors. And he said they're great tenants, great credit scores. He said, but because of this vacancy issue, he's had to drop his credit scores from 7-something to 6-something. They still can't get filled, they'll go lower and lower and lower. And at that point, we have a problem. And then came up this other issue, and I got thinking. Today, we sat here saying, bring business to our area. We want you in this area. We want in this area. This is a local guy that has a big footprint in Malta. His wife is from here. His daughter is from Malta. And we can't just come to a resolution between him and us to remove that phrase so he can get his financing. We remove ourselves from having a law that is discriminatory. And at the same time, he's more than happy to show you his data that he has on having seniors. We talk about senior housing over and over and over, but here we are telling a local guy, a local developer who's got a big footprint in town, you know what? We don't care what you think. We got to change that mindset. We can't attract businesses to our town through Greg Connors when they skip over us. We're concerned about a 6-month moratorium. The reason why our last town board, we were trying to attract businesses in. And I'll be son of a gun. We ought to continue to try to attract them, not turn them off. And this is only one example. I'm sure there's other things. And it could be solved very, very easily. Believe me, take that one phrase out that wasn't even approved by our town board. I didn't even know about it, which gets back to something that's illegal and blocked all of his financing at this time here.
If we take that phrase out, then the project is no longer zoning compliant. If he
Well,
builds 40,
Whose
he's allowed
decision
to.
was it to put that in there?
Who was on the town board in 2017?
Because I didn't approve of it. I didn't write the letter.
Steve, if it's discriminatory, why do we got to do a public hearing if we just want to get rid of rescind?
Rescind the law.
Yeah, because this is part of our form-based code, and it's a requirement to amend your zoning code. You have to have a public hearing and follow the process. And that's all we're seeking to do, is to move this forward. You know, I understand Craig's position and sentiment, and don't disagree. But the problem is that the solution still keeps us in violation. The proposed solution, and I'm not aware of another workaround, still keeps us in violation of the federal law. And that's why it's not tenable, not because we don't want to work with them, but we have our own fair housing statute in Malta to comply with the federal law. And, you know, it requires this record keeping and tracking to make sure that we're complying, you know, and we need to monitor it in a way that complies with federal law. We can't just say, like, we gave a density bonus and it's may or may not comply with federal law, but let's just keep it on the books. That's the real crux of the issue, is that it's not that, you know, there's no desire to work with the developer. It's that the proposed solutions, the lawyers, myself, and other counsel didn't think that was viable. And that's what puts us in this position.
And I'm not a lawyer, I'm just looking at it from common sense. And believe me, it don't make sense, Steve. Doesn't make sense.
Well, I think what
Basic
doesn't, what I
business
think
purpose.
that doesn't make sense is the interpretation by the federal government that, you know, this isn't even just our standard zoning, it's a zoning incentive. So it's a bonus of units, of 4 units for a protected class, and that somehow that's discriminating against families. You know, on its face, it doesn't even necessarily mean that they wouldn't be families. You can be a 55-year-old person and have young children in it, but that's what the case law says, and that's what's been presented to us, is that our local law, according to the developer, is in violation of not just his attorney's opinions, but the DOJ's and FHA's counsel, that we're violating federal law. So
And I
my
would-
recommendation to the town board is that we don't violate federal law. And unfortunately, I'm not aware of a workaround other than to amend the local law to require 80% over 55 occupancy, and that doesn't help the developer, and that's not what the town was looking to do with this local law, all of which, you know, predated me and some of you on the board. It was a good intention to say, let's allow a little bit more. We don't want to go crazy with density bonuses, but let's allow a little bit more for seniors, because part of our comp plan is to promote affordable and senior housing. And this senior housing component was from that spirit in 2017. Unfortunately, with new information, it's not compliant, and that's the advice that I can give to the board on, unfortunately. That doesn't mean that, you know, there, you know, can't be continued discussions and way to try to help the developer. It's through no fault of his. He applied for something that was authorized in our code. He's been informed that it violates the law, and you know, so that's where we're at. There's
You know what
nothing-
I suggest? Seeing that I think I was the only one that was on the board when we put that
Yes.
through. And the intent of it is that people in our town were screaming over the density problem in apartments. I get it. We all listened, we heard you, and we said, okay, we have a senior problem also. And we tried to work with the developers, putting more restrictions on him, and yet filling a problem in town with the seniors. I voted for it. I'll own up to it. I have no problem. But at the same time, we got to find a solution here. And I think it's time for our lawyers, all of them, myself, Cynthia, and Hayes, to sit down and find a simple solution going forward. That's all it takes. Nobody's talking to each other. They're sending letters out and saying, you must comply by such and such a date. I was told about a 30-day timeline in my conversation with him.
Yep, he in his letter gave us 30 days to respond to his letter.
His lawyer did, yes.
And our lawyer responded to him, correct,
When did she
last week.
respond? Okay.
Yeah.
Now that I'm thoroughly confused,
Yep.
I'll try to codify this. If we in fact have a law that's against federal law to protect the town, we got to get rid of it. That seems like a simple thing. And everything else to me is noise.
I agree with you, Al. Whether there's a step two.
And then we can move on, how many steps, how many windows, and whatever. Let's just protect the town first. And if the guy's got to rebuild or re-engineer it, so be it.
And,
And I agree with that. We don't have any other choice.
right.
It's wrong, get it off the books. But at the same time, you ought to start sitting down with any developer and try to find a solution forward.
And I agree wholeheartedly, and, you know, we have, this is not, this is, I think, went back to April of last year. So we had meetings, we talked to their lawyers, we proposed a solution that didn't work out. They're proposing a solution that we don't feel comfortable with. because it keeps this law that violates FHA that now we've approved a property with on the books, and it just doesn't seem tenable for the town board to be in that position. So I'm fully open to working out a solution. I'm not aware of one under this current, under this current local law, and the proposed solution is not viable. So it's not that we can't potentially come to a new understanding, or as supervisor pointed out, it maybe could be resolved at the zoning board, as an appeal. So, I feel for the developer and I feel for the town, and we're just trying to craft, get a bad law off the books so we don't have a bigger headache down the road.
Simple.
So next week, we'll have an action item to set a public hearing about rescinding the local law and referring it to the planning board.
Correct, and the way it'll work is it's gonna change three things in our form-based code that were amended by the 2017 local law, which is to take out this 20% housing bonus for the definition of apartments and special uses. So
At the
there's three
same time,
minor
I
changes.
believe they reduced the overall density of apartments.
That was the intent of
Right,
the whole
right.
statement that
Right.
we put forward. So,
But
in
again,
other words, if we do nothing, we're at the same point in time with our old form-based code before we amended it.
if we do nothing, another
Do
developer
nothing.
might come by and try to avail themselves of that density bonus.
Right, yeah, but what we're proposing in the local law would be to undo what we tried to fix in
density bonus.
2017, correct?
But the density bonus came after. The intent of it was to slow down the apartment building density. So we
We
brought
made an
the quantity
exception.
back, but we also said, but if you give us senior housing, we'll get you back there,
Correct.
right?
Correct. That's my understanding, yes. That's what this local law tried to do, is to say, well, we're scaling back, we previously scaled back density. We recognize the need for senior housing, so we'll allow more density.
Too.
And now we'd be taking away those extra units, not just for this developer, it's for anybody that would,
Right.
to apply for this. We're not doing this directed towards any particular developer. We're doing it to prevent, violating federal law and applying it to all developments. In the form-based code, you no longer be able to get this bonus density.
Okay, any other comment on that? Next, you will recall that some time ago, I don't remember exactly when, we had a presentation and a request to amend the State Farm Plan Development District to extend the C2 overlay district to both 25 and 40 State Farm Place. This was an action that was actually taken by the former town board to allow Mohawk Chevrolet to add another building, a detailing item. And so this, you recall that what they wanted to build basically is a sort of a flexible office, with mini warehousing on site. Warehouse is a bad word, but, I mean, not the word I mean, but it would be multi-tenant building where you could have like a plumber and he could store all his stuff in his little, it wasn't super huge, but in order to do that, it's not allowed in the State Farm Plan Development District. So he was asking that we extend the C7 or C2 zoning. This property is along 67. It's on Route 67. It's between Hyatt Place and Mohawk Chevrolet. And we have a representative here from Lansing Engineering to answer any questions the board might have.
My one question would be, how visible from Route 67 would that proposal be?
One of the parcels is frontage right on 67, so, but I believe it's permitted through the PDD to have curb cuts off of State Farm Place. So the goal, I think, would be to maintain whatever buffer you can along 67.
And 67 is a commercial corridor where we really want to encourage commercial development. So,
All right, layman's term, what are you trying to build and where?
They just want better flexibility at 25 State Farm Place and 40 State Farm Place to, outside of the PDD permitted uses, for additional commercial developments, similar to what's there. For example, like Mohawk Chevrolet, their detail center, the vet across the street, YMCA, anything like that.
Say what? You said flexibility, do they have an idea what they want to build for flexibility?
To my knowledge, at this point, no, but they just want to be able to tap into the C2 and the Route 67 overlay, which is the existing parcels kind of adjacent to that are currently zoned by that, so that would extend that overlay into these parcels as well.
So you don't know what they want to build there?
No, I know that there were some concepts for some flex space, office, warehouse kind of combinations. I don't know how far those have gone, but those are just some initial concepts that we saw.
yeah, when we had the conversation, and this is still, true, it wouldn't be, it's not tractor trailers coming in and out or any of that. I mean, that none of that would still be allowed. It's still,
One of my concerns is not with the proposal, my concern is with C2, which allows a mixed-use residential, commercial combination, apartments on top of a first-floor commercial. Is that what is a possibility, the concept?
If
not what he presented to us at all, but.
that's not consistent with the plan that I have been referred to and seen, but I don't know how far along it's been passed since that plan.
Okay.
It's my understanding that it's more for additional commercial uses, consistent with the C2 Route 67 zone.
On a side note to the board, I would want to review C2 on March 10th, if we have the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's light industrial, to me, that looks like a warehouse, and we plopping up a warehouse right there on 67, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, what he was proposing was not a warehouse at all.
It says it right here, light industrial, to me, that's a warehouse.
It's the warehouse, large-scale warehouse
It's a
included.
different name, what's
manufacturer's own
light
equipment.
industrial then?
What he, the proposal that he showed us, again, it's not in stone, of course, it was flexed office space with,
So that's a definite maybe.
yeah, it's definitely maybe.
All right, well, I'm not changing anything for a definite maybe. It needs to come
What-
back with a little bit.
What I
more
like is, I
concrete.
like, they're not, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Al.
Yeah.
I like that they're not asking for, correct me if I'm wrong, to approve a PDD plan. They're asking for us to change this PDD to C2. Is
Yes,
that, okay,
Keep the PDD, but overlay the C2 Route 67
I
zone,
see.
right.
Combination of the two.
similar to what was approved for the Mohawk
Yeah, I
Chevrolet
mean-
Recon Center.
It's pretty much exactly what was approved for the Mohawk Chevy.
I wouldn't be prepared to vote
The
on
difference
it.
is we knew what was going on Mohawk Chevy. It was a detailed center. It had a name. That's my problem is this conceptual stuff, was conceptual. Are you going to build my Ferris wheel? I've always wanted a Ferris wheel in this town and, that's, I'm being sarcastic here, but,
I don't think that'd be a good location for a Ferris wheel.
well,
Has the
want-
client approached the Hyatt to ask them for their input on this here?
I'm not aware of any communication that they've had.
That would be my
I mean,
biggest.
the
I
Hyatt.
I know that a big reason for this ask is that they've been marketing these parcels for quite some time, and they, what the PDD currently allows is, a lot of it is strictly office use, and now since COVID, strictly office uses the demand has gone substantially down, so they're struggling to find tenants to fill those, so they're just looking to expand to potentially bring in different
And that
tenants.
Route 67, yeah, you know, you can't put any family houses on that. Of course, you can't get out to the road because of the traffic, and I'm all for commercial. I just conceptually, again, the vagueness to me worries me, you know, that we're looking for a specific change to something that we don't know what may or may not go in there. That's, you know,
Okay.
that's just my kind of initial feeling on it, if we're just having a discussion, you know. I'm kind of for that whole area getting, you know, used and developed and all that stuff. I don't want to open up the hen house door yet until we know what's coming in. We're letting the fox in, or are we letting, you know, that's just me.
And it would still have to go before our planning committee, correct? Cynthia?
It has to go to the Saratoga County Planning Board. I think we can make the zoning change without going to the planning board. Anything built would have to go to the planning board, yes.
Right, yeah.
I mean, one other thing to note is, correct me if I'm wrong, back there in the back row, most of the other area there is zone C7 or C2. So the surrounding properties are conforming to that same zoning. So we're not asking for anything really extraordinary outside the bounds of what's already zoned there.
No, so I'm not going crazy. I just conceptually, you know.
I won't be prepared to vote on this next week.
Okay.
I'm concerned with that one line that what C2 allows with the mixed residential commercial use. Not
But
saying
it's not a total no, so we.
Not a total no.
No, it's not. It's just, it got to be, you know, this is the first shot across the bow. And I'd like to,
Well, they were here before.
It
Second shot.
specifically, it's the
still
multi-tenant
vague.
building, maximum of 3 floors, second floor above commercial floor. That's the concern I have with that whole 67 West corridor.
Okay, well, tell Mr. Rosenblum we'll be in touch
Okay,
and we'll, you know, discuss it further.
thank you.
It wasn't a total no, so,
yeah, that's just,
yeah.
Thank you.
I'm not at this point, I just gotta dive into it.
So next on our agenda, we think we have finalized a possible license agreement. It's not with the Luther Forest Athletic, but the Malta Athletic Association. For those of you who may not know, the Malta Athletic Association is a 501c3 that the town of Malta has an agreement with to run our Luther Forest athletic fields in the tech campus. And so they basically take care of them, they rent them. They're not-for-profit, they make minor repairs. We've had some concerns about the prior agreement, and so we've been working for probably almost a year, trying to come up with an agreement that's mutually acceptable to both of us, and I think we have done so. Our town attorney has done most of the work on it. We already had a public hearing. I don't think it's changed substantially since then, a couple of tweaks. Do you, Steve, there's nothing that's,
No, none of the
Require
changes.
another public
We're
hearing.
just crossing Ts and dotting Is, I think, at this point.
Right.
Now, I've got to email into the MAA for confirmation, but I'm not expecting any major changes that would derail what we previously have looked at and we're ready to approve.
we're hoping, it is only a one-year agreement, so if it doesn't work out, then, you know, we're only bound for a year. What our major goal here is to encourage more public use of these fields. They have not really, they've typically been used by two organizations, the two member organizations, and that, of course, may be violation of, you know, our parkland laws.
And we're also just really trying to clean up, you know, the agreement was done in 2014. A lot's changed with that park, and a lot's changed. It included Malta Community Park and Shenantaha, and we're taking those out of that to turn them back over to Parks and Rec. You know, those are two big parts. None of that's changing in this draft. The only thing we're cleaning up is some language that was previously, before the board.
Right.
So by doing this, who controls the scheduling at our other parks?
Oh, that will be Parks and Rec, so they'll go directly through the Parks and Rec Department for both Shenantaha and Malta Community Park field rentals.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, I agree. I think after all the years of hearing concerns about that, thank you for the progress on that.
So I'm hoping, we'll hear back from the MAA and we'll be able to actually take action on that. I mean, it hasn't been too critical yet because right now the park's closed, but they're
Yeah, but
gearing up.
it's getting to be that point.
Right.
For the board, because, people want to start reserving
Right.
spaces and, once we get a few nice spring days, hopefully someday, soon, maybe, the demand and the desire to use the park's going to go up. So we want to get this in place so we're ready for the season.
So they haven't agreed to this new contract yet, other than a verbal?
Right, they haven't signed it yet.
Yeah, they requested some tweaks, minor tweaks to the language. I've addressed those, I think, and sent it back over. And we hope to have that final agreement to bring to the board at the next meeting. And the changes that we're talking are more of, clarifications, which are helpful to both sides.
And some things that we agreed on that the final agreement didn't really necessarily have, we left out a different price for the lighted field and things like that, but that's now been rectified, so. So that'll be next week. The general public will be very happy to hear that the next two items are, we're moving forward with trying to get an online payment for the users of the Malta Water District Number 1. One of the biggest ones we took over, we bought Saratoga Water Services, and one of the first thing residents started telling us was that they wanted an online payment system. So these next two we have to enter into an agreement with the company that will do that online service for us. So hopefully that's.
What's the fee for having that set up anyways?
I don't know what the fee's gonna be, but it'll be borne by the user. I mean, so if you choose to pay online, you'll have
Being a district, okay, I got you.
whatever, I don't remember what the amount was, but it's probably in the. Right. Right, so. So that's those two. Next, as you know, we have buildings that need some pretty serious updating and maintenance. We are in the process of moving forward with, hopefully, with, the design and building of a new court. There are several things that were identified in the study that the former board did and that evaluated all of our buildings. Our maintenance supervisor got just an estimate. These sorts of things have to go out for proposal. For court window replacements, it was $12,000, $15,000, something to that. But then as we talked, this building needs all new windows. The old part of the community center needs all new buildings, or all new windows. So if we want to proceed with the window thing, we would get probably go for an RFP to just look and see what, have them categorized so we know what's what with the building. But the other thing is, we don't really know what we're going to do with that building. So do we want to make that investment now? Or do you want to just see what it's going to cost?
Wait a minute.
For $12,000, what we got?
Well, that was just a window. I mean, we'd have to go out for proposal. That was kind of just a.
Sounds very reasonable to me. Is that the only building that we got plastic upon the windows?
No, but this building, there's a couple of windows that could use plastic.
Yeah,
So
I say go
Jamie's
small.
office.
I got something to say about that.
Well, the other thing is, so let me just go on and talk about all stuff. The other thing is, all of these buildings also need roofs. in my opinion, the priority would be to look at roofs first, because this roof leaks, that roof leaks. I think the community center, the old part of the community center has an issue. So in my opinion, if we were gonna do any capital improvements first, it would be roofs. We put the windows out there because Councilman Warner asked our highway, or our maintenance superintendent to investigate it.
You know what? The only thing I asked for is 3 windows in the court so the clerks don't have to sit there with a winter jacket on in the middle of winter. I've been asking for this for 3 years now. The best I got out of it was plastic put on the windows. And the reason why I've been so damn adamant on this is because I went through the same thing at GE. I finally brought in a roll of insulation, stuffed it in between the window, and I was hell. The only thing we got to do is to replace those 3 windows to keep our employees safe. That's all I've asked for. It doesn't have to be a fancy window. It can be the same window that I got at my house, just to keep them warm in a workplace that we're responsible for. We shouldn't have to put thermoplastic on that window come fall and then take it down in the spring and then remind them again they got to do it because it's the fall.
I don't,
And the employees never, ever complain. But somebody's got to speak up for them because they're worried about their job and they don't want to ruffle the feathers. I don't mind ruffling them, but I've been asking for 3 years for 3 simple windows that can't cost more than $100 or $250 each. That's all I asked for. That's all I asked for was the damn handicap ramp to stop getting plowed into so a handicapped person can get out of the court if there was a fire. And we'll look at what that imploded into.
All right, so we come up
Keep
with,
it simple, Jack.
so, Terry, estimate for 3 windows. Thank you. What's next?
do,
We'll get 3 windows.
right,
3 windows.
There you go.
do you want,
Or I'll put them in.
well, so 2 want 3 new windows. Any opinion from the other 2?
Well, like,
I would rather make our building improvements in a thoughtful and reasonable way.
well, if we're gonna break open that can of worms,
We're gonna replace windows, let's replace the windows.
well, if we're building a new courthouse, right, and we're at the tail end of this winter, we'll get a price, and it might not be equitable to get them fixed, depending on how fast the courthouse gets. Now, if you want to talk about a capital plan, that's got to be encompassed of, not at this board, but at a sit-down and discuss time and utilization of, how old each roof is, who's leaking. That ain't no fly-by-night if we're gonna do a capital plan, because that's millions of dollars.
We've actually been working on that, the things that are identified as needing, replacement. Like I say, I'm concerned about the roofs.
I just think that if,
There's a turkey pan up in the attic under
it's,
my desk.
it's, broken windows gets fixed,
Yeah.
something, broken glass, crack in my windshield in my car is never gonna get smaller. It just ain't. So if we got, or employees, 3 windows, it should be a no-brainer. It shouldn't take that much time.
Well, it took us 3 years on a no-brainer, and we earned $750,000 into $12,000.
Oh, I don't know where we get we from, but,
Matt, do you have any opinion on this?
This is the first I've heard about 3 windows.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, well, I don't know what to do.
Yes, he's gonna get a estimate for 3 windows. Come back next Monday with that estimate, please. Thank you.
Get us a quote on 3 windows, okay? And come back to the board. Not roofs on every single building in town
Okay.
and not on every window. Just 3 windows, not 12.
The other thing that was brought to our attention by a gentleman who was in the building is that this one hopefully will be a little simpler, that none of the door handles in any of our buildings are ADA compliant. ADA compliance requires that you have lever door handles. So we went out to get an estimate for that, and it was just over $5,000, I believe. Then it was just to do this building. So what do you think about that?
I say we need to have a sit down and have a capital plan for all the buildings if we're gonna discuss.
I mean, I agree, we've talked
If we're
about,
gonna get into, the sink and the faucet and the door handle and the window and the light, if we wanna get that small, I'm all for it, but I don't think we should be doing it at this forum.
The other,
might have to have another workshop.
Great.
the other issue is Clifton Park had an audit by the ADA, and they found several things, and I believe they're coming around to all the towns to inspect them, so we ought to put on a to-do list as far as signage and small things that we can actually accomplish before we get audited
Yeah,
too.
yeah, nothing small, but like I
We
say.
can do the small things.
Next, to bring this up again, we want to talk about designating on-call positions. There was some conversation last time about the town justice, and then afterwards, we found that the Parks and Rec Director also performs on-night duties. This is not about taking cars home. It's about designating positions that are on-call positions. We are actively trying to move forward with your recommendation that we monitor the mileage of vehicles. It's a must, and agreed. And, well, Julia's not here, but we're, actively working on that. We had some problems because, for the past, 2 or 3 weeks, there've been more people out sick than there have been at work. So, we're modifying that to add working supervisors as on-call positions, and also adding the town justices and the Director of Parks and Rec. So,
All right, so you said it's not about giving out cars. How many cars, hypothetical, do we have to give out if we had to launch the fleet? 4 or 5? How many vehicles?
the people that drive vehicles home are the 2 working.
No, the question is, how many vehicles do we have at our disposal?
Oh, how many vehicles do we have? Planning and zoning has 3. I have no idea how many highway has.
And now you got me
Water
peaked.
has 3. You don't have any? Courts has none.
All right,
Maintenance has some.
What about that Maserati that's out back?
well,
He's on call too, isn't he? Hey,
why even go down this path? All right, I guess the first thing we have to decide is how many vehicles the town has first, all right? And maybe now, might be even more important to find out how much fuel cost we're doing, because we don't even know how many vehicles we got. We just went from 4 to 7 to 9, right?
Some of them don't have a car available. to them.
But anyhow, so we'll be kicking kicking this down the road a little bit more.
Okay.
But designating people, have the branches come to you, decide if they need a on-call position?
Well, here's the thing, just a little caveat. In research, our town attorneys discovered that basically the highway superintendent can decide whatever to do with whatever vehicles he has under his purview. So the town board can't dictate who is allowed
That
to.
don't sound like any checks and balances where I come from.
No,
So-
it's not a check and balance. I mean, your check and balance is the budget. You approve the budget to the highway, but the equipment and how it's used he's not here, but is the highway superintendent's decision. The other departments, it's different. But again, what we're talking about with this resolution is to just, for our purposes of our handbook, to say these are the on-call positions, not to give anybody a car.
Well, I'm
Not to
agreeing.
make-
I know where we're going with, we need, I'd like to see the list of, what,
Why this came up was with our new handbook, we realized that it's probably an action that the town board has never taken, and it's in our handbook that we designate on-call positions.
Right.
Well, this whole subject, I think we're woefully, you know, failing on this right now for us to know that, but anyhow.
Yeah, no, we can get the information as to the number of cars and.
No, I'm just saying, yeah, for the, well, yeah, just
but-
get number of cars and how many on-call positions.
Right,
And I'm all
track the
for it.
mileage and do all that. I mean, that's all,
That's, these
fiscally
vehicles are,
responsibility by the town. I just wanted to be clear for the public and the board that this limited action we're taking is just to say, these are the positions that are on call that theoretically would be eligible to have a vehicle. not-
I agree wholeheartedly with you on that, Steve.
Okay.
Isn't the supervisor responsible for who he has on call and who he's calling in?
The highway superintendent or
The
the,
highway superintendent,
Yeah.
Terry,
yeah,
Gene,
yeah.
I mean, they're all not getting cars, I guarantee you. One
Yeah,
There's
No, it's-
no
it's-
discussion, there's no
it's-
proposal to
there's-
give anybody a car. I don't know where this is coming
No,
from.
I don't know how it morphed into this.
No, I got you, Steve. The highway department, the highway department gets so many vehicles, and we want to find out what those positions are. No names associated, just
Just position.
positions. I'm with that.
Exactly, it's position.
So we can satisfy.
By our own HR manual. This next one should be easy. I'm pretty sure.
I'll make it hard. What do you got?
We're gonna have a resolution next week to authorize the town clerk and her deputy to go to the annual town clerks conference,
In Aruba.
the end of April. I don't even remember where it is. I got it here. Where is it?
So moved.
Syracuse. Yeah, no, we'll act on that next week. I'm assuming there won't be anybody opposed to that. We have a water superintendent that we really would like to work for us for the next 30 years, but I don't think he's going to. His licensing allows him to be the water superintendent. His assistant water superintendent has a D license, and in order to be the, C and D?
For the water plant, we're talking
Right.
about the C that he has right now.
Right. So he, in order for him to possibly be the successor, and just for general practice, good practices according to the Department of Health, we want to send our assistant water superintendent to a certification course in April also. And that is so that he can be a grade B operator. B2. And
So-
that is in Cortland.
Question. What is the grade operator who takes the samples every 24 hours?
Anybody.
Is it a C, is it a D, what?
Well, a D is a distribution position,
Okay,
nothing to do with water plants.
okay,
So, it depends on the size of the water plant. We are a B plant,
a B plant.
so it could be either a C operator or a B operator. A C is lower,
Okay,
but the C can work underneath a D supervisor.
gotcha. Thanks, Steve.
So that'll come up. This one might be a little sketchy for you guys. We have been asked by Jeff with the wacky last name they want to host a disc golf tournament at Shenandoah Creek Park. It would mean closing the course for several hours. It's 72 people. It's on a holiday weekend. It's Saturday of Memorial Day weekend. And of course, 72 people probably would eat up most of the parking in the parking lot. And, I'm asking for advice on this town board as to whether or not you want to allow that. I mean, our kind of general thought and our talk with our town attorney is that it makes the park less available for everybody else if they tie it up with a disc golf tournament, but
They also,
on a holiday weekend.
Do we have a recommendation from the Parks and Rec Director?
So I think in the past that these things were going on and we didn't know about them. So I can't, I mean, I haven't been there when he's having an event. I don't know how busy it is. They do run it rain or shine. He's asked multiple times to be able to rent that space, but it is going to take the park away from other people. Now, if we have a pavilion rental that same weekend, that may be a tough weekend. You know what I mean? That may be hard for the people that rent the pavilion. We may have to say that that weekend's off limits. We haven't started to rent the pavilions yet anyway, but the plan is to start to rent them next week. So, you know, we were going to cross off that weekend for pavilion rentals or just that, whatever, you know. We might have to look at that being the case, and we might have to close the pavilion rentals.
How many people in this tournament?
72, he says.
72.
We'd be-
And is this for what day on Memorial Day weekend? The Saturday, the Sunday? Saturday?
I believe it would start relatively early. I can get that more information from you. I don't know if we asked.
Listen, I love tournaments.
Did ask him. I think we had, I think that was in the email. I didn't write it down.
So it started at 8 a.m. Our pavilion rentals don't start till 10. So pretty much those people would be working through the course at that point.
But they'd still be on the course, because he said it would be 4 or 5 hours, or 5 or 6 hours, something like that, yeah.
Be there on that weekend. I don't have the ability to rent those, that's out, so that's why I'm coming to you to, what you want to do. If you want, we can have the ability to rent that, and if we do, what the price would be for a 4 or 5 hour rental.
3 windows for the courthouse.
So this is the same group that installed the course, designed it, maintain it, coming to the town to ask permission to use it. In a tournament, they can provide insurance, and we're worried they're gonna fill a parking lot? Right?
Well, I think they're gonna fill the parking lot, and then we have pavilion rentals that I'm already allowed to do. So all I'm saying is if you're gonna have that, maybe you want me to block off that Saturday and say we can't have anybody renting that pavilion until 3 o'clock. You know, I think we may find that it's too busy. Plus, we have, bathrooms that are maintained at the parks. We might have to send people back to clean them a second time if we're gonna have that many people at the park.
What do we do
And other
on
general park users.
community day with our parking?
So for parking, they park up along the side there. We also have 5 porta potties that are there for extra people because our bathrooms are, limited. We have well water there, so it's, we provide extra parking. We provide, staff there all day long that clean the bathrooms and take care of any of the garbage that we have.
I mean, that's kind of an extreme comparison, because.
Yeah, so for the board, the situation is that the town board decides how we use town property, including the park. With respect to other rentals, as Kristen indicated, there is a policy and an application that says you can rent a pavilion, you can use a field, but the disc golf course is just a much larger area, and she doesn't have the ability to say, sure, complete the permit, use it. So she's coming to the board really saying 2 things. Do we want to allow tournaments to take place at the town park? And do we want to allow this one on May 30th? That's what's the point of the resolution, is to discuss today, hey, yeah, we're generally on board with creating a new permit application that she can just go ahead and have them complete them, give them the insurance, make sure there's no conflicts because you have other field usage that could be impacted. For example, where they play cricket, if you have 2 events on that Saturday, we're asking for a big problem. So the Parks and Recs director is saying, hey, town board, is this what we want to do with what was this free play disc golf? Do we want to allow tournaments? Is this what we want to do with our town property? And if so, do we want to allow it on Saturday of a holiday weekend?
I know my intent would be, I don't want one group to be able to dominate the park especially on Memorial Day weekend. I just unsure if a 72-person disc golf tournament does that. Do you think it would disrupt the other residents from being able to use the park freely?
I don't know how many cars it's gonna be.
Well, there's going to be, yeah, they're all not going to drive in individual cars, but anyhow, my thought on the situation is, I'm all for tournaments. That's going to be great publicity if having a tournament there, and then one of those 75 people go, oh, I can get the pavilion too at a different weekend. That's great. And then eventually someone's going to win with a trophy, with a picture. It's going to go in a paper. It's even better. So, and it's good for the community. And yeah, there's a lot of tournaments held on holiday weekends. There's nothing wrong with that. You can't please, listen. It's, you could be righty, lefty, doesn't matter, right? We're not discriminating against anybody. We're playing frisbee.
You can be senior.
Got the
Be
park
short like me,
public.
right?
I'll do
I'm in
some-
favor of it.
I'll have my opinion next week
Okay.
for about,
Right.
I just gotta do some more research on this
All
one.
right. Well, fair enough.
How many people go to the community day?
Oh,
A lot.
it's hard to say, more than 1,000. And they come and go, so it's not. Last item for our regular business is we did, we had trouble finding somebody that would do a wage and salary study for us. We did find a national company that was willing to, nobody local was. The public sector, the people who did our handbook just said they're too busy and they can't do it. The estimate that they gave us for this work was $26,000, $26,200. A lot of money, I think, for a study, so we,
26,000.
26,000.
26,000?
Right, and so what I'm kind of proposing, and we're gonna try to do, we got the copy of a wage and salary study that another municipality in Saratoga County had done. So Julie and I are gonna try to sit down and compare their employees with our employees, which is difficult to do because nobody has we don't have their job descriptions or anything.
Are they willing, from reading that proposal,
Yeah.
the booklet was,
lot.
everything, and it can be cut out, a lot of it, and just, hey, we need a salary structure of what is the fair market price for,
Yeah.
instead of all these
Yeah.
studies and studies and stuff, I'm like, there's a lot of stuff on there that we just don't need.
Part of the problem
We got to
was,
tailor it.
right. Part of the problem was this company was unwilling to do that because mostly, if it was a Saratoga County company, it'd be one thing. But this is a company it's a national company. The people we were talking to were in Georgia, or I think one of them was in Canada.
I say we look more, we don't commit to, they offer too much. It's like,
Yeah.
they're giving us stuff that's, we're just going to go right into the bin, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. So my tendency is to not, go ahead with this. I mean, we were gonna still continue to reach out to civil service to see if they had any advice as to how to proceed. I don't know if Julia's had a chance to do that. She was gonna do that.
Who was the firm that did the one in Milton?
The public sector, the people that did our handbook, they're the ones that said that they did not have time to do it for us
At all
at all, or at this time, this year.
this year?
Yeah, or any, they didn't say, they didn't give us a timeline, they just said no.
Maybe they didn't want to work with us.
Oh, I don't think that's it. I don't think they had any problem working with us.
It's not
So-
too often that a company says no, though.
Yeah, well, I think they're just too busy to take it on. There's just not that kind of businesses out there, those kind of consultants, so. So you agree, that's too much
Something's gotta be
money?
done.
Something's gotta be done.
Yeah, we just can't, I don't think we should pull the trigger on that thing, a bad phrase, sorry. Make a commitment yet on that for that much money for what they're gonna offer us. There's a lot of stuff that we don't need. And, I don't know.
Okay, so we're agreed on that. So any additional comments from the public?
My name's Rick Handley. I live in Danbury Drive. Don't blame me for extending the meeting.
I
don't
was
think it
gonna
was my
say, you
fault.
get double time because you had to
Yeah,
wait so
okay.
long.
Oh, just wait.
No, I should have done this 2 weeks ago. I wanted to thank the board for live streaming the workshops. I think that's a great thing to do. The other thing that you did was allow the public to speak at the workshop on the moratorium. I commend you for that. I think that was a really great thing to do. The only other thing is, I don't know whether The town has a representative on the MAA board. If you do not, I would encourage you, as part of your agreement, to get a town representative on the MAA board. Thank you.
It does require that they include our Director of Parks and Rec and everything. So I don't know that she's an official member of the board, but, so thank you, Rick. Oh,
I'm not a member of the MAA, but I've been involved with the MAA and specifically the Boston Spa Soccer Club.
Hi, Mark Hammond, Malta Ridge. As I sat here listening tonight, I had some flashbacks that weren't all really that great concerning the courthouse. I remember the plastic. I remember the cold. No, it's not something to make light of, but to me, I kind of chuckled because I remember it very well. But I also remember that myself and the previous board, we tried to get ahead of what we're witnessing right now and we're going to continue to witness in terms of the building status, whether it be a roof, whether it be windows, whether it be doors. This is not going to go away. We knew that almost 2 years ago. We engaged and we spent some good money through an architect engineer firm, BCA. Al, Matt, Craig, you guys may remember that. We met with them a lot, and again, we spent rather a decent amount of money on it, which makes me feel really bad that that was money that seems to be wasted. And it's wasted because I haven't heard one thing since I left office about BCA and about what they recommended to this town. We engaged with those folks to help us plan out for our future. That wasn't a me thing or the previous board thing. That was a town of Malta thing. And for it to be just going away and sitting on a shelf, that very thick study with all those suggestions of what we could do, to me, that's just ridiculous that that would happen. It's there to be used, and I don't understand for the life of me why we're not using it. Why are we not looking into what they suggested we look at? And we had a lot of feedback from a lot of different departments. I mean, in fact, every department. We put out questionnaires. What do we need? What will we need? Not just now, but 5, 10, and 15 years out. All of that information went into their study. And we're not doing a thing with it. I think this board needs to find that study, dust it off, and it might benefit not just you guys, but the residents, because it's all in there. All you have to do is look. Thank you.
I will note for the board that that study is sitting on my desk. It's exactly what I've been using to try to itemize. The two things that they suggested be done in 2025 are roofs and windows. And they say which buildings are the most critical, so we're actively, maintenance staff and I, and Julia, are actively using that report to detail what repairs we think are improving that need to be done, so.
I got a question.
And there's an extra copy in my office, if anybody wants to look at it.
When we were negotiating the buying of Saratoga Water Services, the lawyer that we hired and the forensic
Yeah, the accountant, yeah.
stressed to us that Saratoga Water Services is Global Foundry's secondary source, and that Global Foundries pays under contract several thousands of dollars for that. Where is the line item that I can see from our controller to track those fees that our lawyer, Bill Ryan, has confirmed to me recently that all the contracts except renting the offices over there transferred to us? In other words, I'm asking, where's the money?
You know, I don't have the budget in front of me. It's probably appropriated someplace in the water budget. So I don't think
would
we've
like
actually,
Figures.
I don't think we've actually received that money yet. I think we've billed them. I think there was we had to redo we had something with the contract recently with that. They didn't transfer the contract at the time of the closing.
October, but that
So-
was billed
Right,
monthly.
so now we have updated that. I don't know if we've gotten that contract back yet from Global, but just recently, we had to get that contract transferred to the town of Malta. So we should see that. It's gotta be an item in the budget someplace, underwater. Well,
I'd like to actually see it as a separate line item.
my guess is it probably is.
I couldn't find it.
Gene's shaking his head. Do you not know? Or you say it's not in there? Right,
As far as I know,
Right.
there's never been any water from Global Foundries.
right, they don't
hasn't
use it. Right,
Right.
right.
Excuse me, I didn't want to yell from the audience. I don't know whether or not it impacts why Craig can't see it or not. But I remember in one of the many discussions with Alec Mackey before we made the deal and signed the paperwork, he had told me that while they do have that agreement with Global Foundries, he never actually collected money from them. To him, in his words, he said it wasn't worth it to him. Now, it's thousands of dollars, but that may be why, I don't know why you're not seeing it, but I just thought that I would add that just as a point of clarity that might be the reason.
I'm looking for it.
Oh,
Craig, the amount was, under the old contract was $100,000. The,
100,000
yep,
For what?
for annually.
annually?
Yep, and this is from, we had Bill Ryan represented us, but just from being involved, and it's, at the time of in the water budget, it's listed as a line item. It's unmetered water services or sales,
Okay.
and it shows $100,000 in our adopted budget. So it should be in there. I think when Julia is back, she can point that out to you. But yeah, Alec, although he had a contract, did not collect those fees, but we required that be assigned and made part of our acquisition.
Right.
And like I said, we just haven't been able to go to it because there was an oversight at the closing for some reason.
I recall it to be a monthly expense, but I could be wrong.
It may be $100,000 over 12 months,
Yeah.
which would be, you know.
Anybody else? Well, with that, you'll be, sorry, Alex.
That's all.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Alex Friedman. I'm from Ridley Road South. Just two quick things. First off, on the proposed building renovations, I'm glad that there is some architectural proposal that was already submitted and that you're looking at that. And just as an aside, you don't just do 3 windows. If you're going to do it, do all of it at once, because you're going to just play a game of, well, now the next window and the next window, and it's going to keep going up as building costs go up. So I would say I'm personally in agreement of do as many windows and as many roofs as you can at once. And so you just have a recurring cost every 30 or however many years you need to renovate. And the other one was just a comment on bullet point number 2, which was law number 9 from 2017. Craig, you pointed out, you talked to, I think, some developer, and you said that there were 200 vacant units already, apartment units within the town.
Throughout town.
And my question, my observation is, why do you need more apartments at that point? Because clearly it's not a vacancy problem. The guy can't get anyone to fill those apartments.
got the
Building
same
more
question.
building more apartments is not going to spur development if nobody wants to go there. I don't see a reason to want to cave to a developer if they're, from your own data collection, a need for more apartment units at this time. And to be compliant with the law, I mean, I think it's quite simple to just either amend it or rescind it. That's all.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Now, I'm going to suggest that we go, you'll all be glad to hear this, into a quick executive session. It'll be quick, I think, I didn't ask Steve how I was supposed to phrase this, to discuss the union grievance? Can I say that?
Yeah, there's been a grievance filed by a particular employee, so it's to address a matter that could impact a particular employee.
And
And it would be, I don't think we're coming back. to
right,
make
I
a decision.
was just gonna say that we will not come back into open session and take any action, so you can rest assured.
So moved to go into executive session.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Good night, everybody. Thanks for coming out.
You didn't tell me about that.